The Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Canizaro. Here. Senator Cruz Crawford. Here. Senator Daly. Here. Senator Danyate. Here. Senator Dondero Loop. Here. Senator Ellison. Senator Flores. Here. Senator Hansen. Here. Senator Krasner. Here. Senator Lang. Here. Senator Neal. Here. Senator Wynn. Here. Senator Ornschall. Here. Senator Pizzina. Senator Rogish. Here. Senator Scheibel. Here. Senator Steinbeck. Here. Senator Stone. Senator Taylor. Present. Senator Titus. Here.
Let the record reflect there are 21 senators present. Please rise for the prayer by Pastor Pat Propster, Calvary Chapel here in Carson City, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you and good morning. A prayer inspired from Psalm 33. Blessed are you, Lord Almighty. We rejoice in you and seek you this day to be our comfort and our strength, our anchor of hope in life and in death. The word of the Lord is right, and his work is done in truth. He loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of the goodness of the Lord. For by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and of the host of them by the breath of his mouth. Let all the earth revere the Lord. Let all the inhabitants stand in awe of him. For he spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. The counsel and plans of his stand forever to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Behold, the eye of the Lord is on those who fear him, on those who hope in his mercy. Our soul waits for the Lord. He is our help and he is our shield. May our hearts rejoice in the Lord. Let us trust in his holy name, trust in his mercies, trust in his hand of guidance, trust in for this day and all the decisions made in it. May the Lord be blessed in all that we think and all that we do and all that we say. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order of Business 3, reading and approval of the journal. By previous order of the Senate, the reading of the journal is dispensed with, and the President and Secretary are authorized to make the necessary corrections and additions. Order of Business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Carson City, April 21st, 2025, to the Honorable the Senate. I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed Assembly Bill numbers 411 and 501. Also, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed as amended Assembly Bill number 110, signed Jason Hadaway, Assistant Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Order of Business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to take Senate Bills 41, 152, 179, and 191 from their place on general file and place them on the Secretary's desk for further discussion.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also move to take the resolutions on the resolution file and place the resolution file at the end of the agenda for this legislative day.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also move that all bills amended on the general file be placed back on the general file immediately after amendment and considered next. Just to be clear, all bills that are on the general file have already had their constitutional second reading, and so this motion is not a motion to suspend any constitutional rules.
Heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the persons noted above on the chamber screen be accepted as accredited press representatives and be allowed use of the appropriate media facilities in the legislative building.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That concludes Order of Business 9.
All right, Order of Business 13, general file.
Senate Bill 7, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary, revises provisions relating to pre-sentence investigations and reports. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 7 authorizes the court to waive a pre-sentence investigation and report if the defendant and the prosecuting attorney stipulate to waive the requirement, and the court approves the stipulation. Additionally, if the court waives the requirement, the court may grant probation without receiving a pre-sentence investigation. The bill reduces from 14 to 7 calendar days the deadline for the Division of Parole and Probation to disclose the factual content and pre-sentence report to the prosecuting attorney, the counsel for the defendant, and the court. And finally, the bill provides that if the division does not receive a copy of the certain written reports of the results, require a psychosexual evaluation at least 3 days before the sentencing hearing. It is not grounds for an order of contempt or such failure by the chief parole or probation officer to submit a pre-sentence investigation. This bill is effective July 1, 2025.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 21, the noes are 0. SB 7 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 44, introduced by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, revises provisions relating to financial services. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 48, end of Section 48, end of bill.
Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 44 establishes federal standards for the safeguarding of customer information in state law and enhances regulatory oversight of providers for certain financial services. Specifically, the bill requires such providers to maintain an information security program and notify the Commissioner of Financial Institutions or Commissioner of Mortgage Lending of any unauthorized acquisition of unencrypted customer information in the same manner as currently prescribed by federal law. Each commissioner must adopt regulations establishing procedures and requirements for notifying the applicable commissioner of such a notification event.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 21, the noes are 0. SB 44 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 69, introduced by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, revises provisions relating to economic development. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 14, end of Section 14, end of bill.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 69, in its first reprint, makes various changes to the incentive programs of the capital investment projects of at least $1 billion and at least $3.5 billion. It requires the lead participant of the project to enter into an agreement to defray the cost of local government services. The bill additionally specifies that the effective date of any abatements approved under these provisions cannot be earlier than July 1 of the fiscal year in which the Office of Economic Development executes the agreement approving the abatements.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 17, the noes are 4. SB 69 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 71, introduced by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to purchasing. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 16, end of Section 16, end of bill.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 71 requires governing bodies of local governments and administrator of the purchasing division to post certain information on their internet websites. The information includes details of the types of supplies, materials, equipment, and services purchased, and procedures for requesting notice of solicitations of other methods of obtaining contracts for such purchases.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 20, the noes are 1. SB 71 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 100, introduced by Senator Daley, revises provisions relating to elections. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Any amendments?
There are none. Section 4 and Section 4 and a bill.
Senator Daley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 100 provides that certain election officials who willfully fail to perform certain election-related duties in a timely manner are guilty of a Category E felony. The Secretary of State must adopt regulations to assure that timely performance of such duties and notify certain oversight boards or commissions concerning the election official who fails to perform required election duties in a timely manner. If there is a failure to address the matter within 48 hours, the SOS must file a complaint with the Attorney General and must initiate proceedings within 30 days. If within 72 hours the notice of the public officer or person who willfully failed to initiate action as set forth in the regulations adopted pursuant to the bill, the SOS may seek a writ of mandamus to compel the person to perform those duties. The bill also requires the SOS to approve vendors of machines, voting systems, or mechanical recording devices used in elections. If the city or county wishes to change the vendor of its existing system, it must first obtain the approval of the Secretary of State.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 14, the noes are 7. SB 100 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 113, introduced by Senator Steinbeck, revises provisions relating to parking privileges for persons with disabilities. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 4 and Section 4 and a bill.
Senator Steinbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 113 adds occupational therapists and physical therapists to the medical practitioners who can certify to an applicant for a certain special license plate, placard, or sticker issued by Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles is a person with a disability. The bill further authorizes an agent or employee of these medical practitioners at the direction and under the supervision of the medical practitioner to complete the statement or certificate. This bill is effective on October 1st, 2025, and to my colleagues, basically this bill just makes it a little bit easier when you get hurt or something that's very difficult to take care of. So thank you, and I appreciate your support.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 21, the noes are 0. SB 113 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 116, introduced by Senator Daley, revises provisions relating to the compensation of elected county officers. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 14 and Section 14 and a bill.
Senator Daley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 116 revises annual salaries of elected county officers using either an inflation-adjusted base or 3% above the highest paid subordinate, whichever is greater. The county commissioner's salaries are set forth commencing on July 1 of fiscal year 2025-26. with scheduled annual increases of 3% per fiscal year for 5 years. The bill allows the Board of County Commissioners to grant a cost of living increase of 2% annually or at any time the board deems appropriate to the base salary of each elected officer. However, these increases must not be used as a one-time bonus that would prevent an increase to the base salary or the person elected to such office at a later date. If the Board of County Commissioners determines financial resources are insufficient to pay salary increases, the pay may be frozen or reduced, but any reductions must be applied using the same reduction calculation for each elected county officer. The bill revises provisions related to the private practice of law by district attorneys, tying exemptions to counties with populations under 3,000, currently Esmeralda and Eureka County. Lastly, the bill authorizes the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Government Affairs during the 2025-2026 interim to study certain issues relating to county commissioners.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 19 and noes are 2. SB 116 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 124, introduced by Senators Danyate, Flores, Stone, and Taylor, and Assemblymember Gonzalez, revises provisions relating to health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill. This bill requires a two-thirds majority vote.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 124 authorizes the Board of Medical Examiners to issue a limited license to practice medicine to a graduate of a qualified foreign medical school who, upon application, holds or has held a valid and unrestricted license to practice medicine by a foreign country, has completed certain postgraduate training or has performed physician duties, and possesses certain other qualifications related to the practice of medicine. The holder of a limited license shall only be employed by certain health facilities, and after a period of 2 years of practicing medicine under a limited license, the board may issue an unrestricted license upon application if certain conditions are met.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 21, the noes are 0. SB 124 has received a two-thirds vote, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 125, introduced by Senator Steinbeck, revises provisions relating to services provided to victims of crime. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. End of bill.
Senator Steinbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 125 authorizes a governmental entity to disclose certain confidential information to the statewide center to provide assistance to victims of crime for the limited purpose of providing support services to those victims. The intent of provision of Section 1.4 is not to preclude any organization that provides services to victims of domestic and sexual violence from entering into MOUs or receiving the type of confidential information proposed in this bill. This bill is all about victim services, something that I know we've all worked on very, very diligently, and urge your support. Thank you.
Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 20, the noes are 1. SB 125 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 128, introduced by Senator Neal, makes changes related to health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 13, end of Section 13, end of bill.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 128 prohibits health insurers, including insurance for public employees, from using, employing, or relying upon AI systems or automated decisions tools to be used for certain actions related to prior authorization for medical or dental health care services or coverage. These health insurers also are required to approve a request for prior authorization unless a licensed healthcare professional with certain qualifications determines that the care is not medically necessary or is experimental or investigational. Furthermore, SB 128 makes that stem cell therapy is discussed with patients and at least offered information about how to treat the condition and information from a primary care on donation.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 15, the noes are 6. SB 128 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 130, introduced by Senators Danyate, Flores, Steinbeck, and Krasner, provides for the issuance by the State Contractors Board of a restricted license. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill. This bill requires a two-thirds majority vote.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 130 authorizes the State Contractors Board to issue a restricted license that allows a person to perform work within a certain scope and monetary limit and a type for which a contractor's license is required. The person must satisfy certain requirements to obtain a restricted license and may apply for an unrestricted license under certain circumstances after holding a restricted license for at least 2 years.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 15, the noes are 6. SB 130 has received a two-thirds vote, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 166, introduced by Senator Scheibel, revises provisions relating to housing. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 166 expands an existing prohibition on refusing to issue, cancel, refusing to renew, or increasing the premium or rate for an insurance policy based on certain factors related to the specific breed or mixture of breeds of dogs kept on a property. Specifically, the bill includes in this prohibition an insurance policy that covers a multifamily residential dwelling and removes a limitation that the specific breed or mixture of breeds be the sole basis for taking the prohibited action. In other words, it requires insurance companies to cover properties that allow pets in the facilities, regardless of what breed those pets are. Specifically dogs. Additionally, the bill requires supportive housing grant recipients to agree in writing to allow a tenant in the supportive housing to keep at least one pet, subject to certain federal, state, and local laws, regulations, and ordinances.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 14, the noes are 7. SB 166 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 167, introduced by Senators Scheibel and Krasner, prohibits the importation and sale of household cleaning products for which animal testing was performed. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 167 prohibits manufacturers, under certain circumstances, from importing, selling, or offering for sale certain household cleaning products for which the manufacturer knew or reasonably should have known that animal testing was performed. This prohibition does not apply to animal testing or data derived from such testing that is conducted to comply with certain federal or state laws, among other exceptions, including animal testing which has already been conducted.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Senator Dondero Loop. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 17, the noes are 4. SB 167 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 168, introduced by Senator Wynne, revises provisions relating to cannabis. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 17, end of Section 17, end of bill.
Senator Wynne.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 168 revises provisions governing cannabis and cannabis products, certain cannabis production facilities, and regulations adopted by the Cannabis Compliance Board. Essentially, this bill makes some conforming changes to packaging consistent with legislation that passed in 2023. It also provides that cannabis, as well as adult-use cannabis products, must be sold to a consumer in a single package. It also requires the board to adopt regulations setting forth require procedures and requirements for administrative hold for cannabis or cannabis products, which allows the board's agent to issue such an order in accordance with these regulations. Essentially, we're adding some due process and some predictability and some conforming language to bill language that we passed in the 2023 legislative session that will allow this industry to continue to operate and mature.
Any further remarks from the floor? Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I have a disclosure to make to this body. There once was a man from Las Vegas who married a woman now famous. She sits on the board that polices the hordes of cannabis stores and their patrons. Since that man from Las Vegas is me, due to our standing Rule 23, I must abstain from this vote. Though my disclosure is rote, I tried to be brief, as you see, but this is all due to Rule 23. Mr. President, I'd like to thank my colleague from Senate District 9 and the President Pro Tem for their excellent poetry abilities, and I will be abstaining on this vote and making this disclosure.
Very good. Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 20, the noes are 0, 1 not voting. SB 168 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Mr. President, may we get a brief 1-minute recess?
We are in recess. The Senate is back in order. We are on order of business 8, waivers and exemptions.
Notice of exemption, April 22nd, 2025. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Senate Bills numbers 175, 192, and 354. Signed, Wayne Thorley, Fiscal Analysis Division. End of notices.
Order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bills 175, 192, and 354 be re-referred to the Committee on Finance upon return from reprint, as they have been determined to have a fiscal impact.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are now back on order of business 13, general file.
Senate Bill 171, introduced by Senators Orenshaw and Scheibel, enacts a shield law to protect the transgender community. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 171 enacts important protections for Nevadans and for the healthcare providers who serve them. Senate Bill 171 ensures that no healthcare provider will be denied licensure or face discipline in Nevada simply for offering medically necessary gender-affirming care that is lawful in our state. Senate Bill 171 also protects patients and providers from out-of-state political interference by prohibiting Nevada state agencies from assisting in certain investigations and proceedings targeting this legal and medically necessary gender-affirming care. At its heart, Senate Bill 171 is about defending medical care, protecting patients and their privacy, and ensuring that Nevada remains a safe and welcoming place for everyone to access the health care they need. I urge its passage.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 13 and noes are 8. SB 171 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 177, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, revises provisions relating to education. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 4 and Section 4 and bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 177 authorizes a school principal, under certain circumstances, to remove a pupil to a temporary alternative placement for up to 45 school days without determining whether the behavior is related to homelessness or being in foster care. If a pupil's behavior is determined to be related to such factors, the principal must convene a meeting with certain individuals to review and revise the pupil's academic plan. The bill also requires the school principal to conduct a meeting with certain district and school personnel and individuals before suspending such a pupil or deeming such a pupil who's at least 11 years of age a habitual disciplinary problem. Finally, a principal is authorized under the bill to suspend pupils who are homeless or have been placed in foster care for up to 5 days without considering behavioral factors that led to the suspension. On the 6th day of a suspension, the principal is required to convene a meeting to determine if the related conduct was caused by or had a direct and substantial relationship to the pupil being unhoused, homeless, or in foster care. If the principal determines the behavior was related, the principal must eliminate the suspension and provide the pupil with behavioral and academic supports.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 15, the noes are 6. SB 177 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 180, introduced by Senator Flores, revises provisions related to motor carriers. People of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2 and Section 2 and bill.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 180 establishes minimum liability insurance requirements for certain motor carriers in Nevada. The bill provides that the Nevada Transportation Authority and the Department of Motor Vehicles must require fully regulated freight carriers and specified motor carriers to submit proof of liability insurance, a bond, or other form of surety to the following minimum amounts: $1 million beginning January 1, 2026, $1.25 million beginning January 1, 2028, and $1.5 million beginning January 1, 2030. Colleagues, I urge your support of Senate Bill 180. For the sake of clarity, the last time minimum liability requirements were altered or changed for freight carriers was back in 1980. It's been nearly 4 decades, over 4 decades since the last time we changed it. If we did simple adjustments based on a 3.1% for inflation, that $750,000 in 2025 would be closer to $3 million. In addition to that, the amount of population, if we just think about 1980 Nevada, we were at just over 800,000 people. Today, we're at over 3.3 million. And in addition to that, that's just talking about inflation increases. 750,000 would be at about 3 mil. Medical expenses have exploded. What you would have spent after a wreck in 1980, in comparison to today, we would be closer to 5.5 million if we actually adjusted correctly. Based on all that, we're asking everybody to take into consideration that we as a state have a requirement and an obligation that when we go into these streets, we impose a requirement on every single driver to ensure that they have insurance, because we enter into a contractual obligation as a society where we agree that if I make a mistake, I need to make sure that I will make you whole on the other side of that. And the only way we can achieve that as a state is by recognizing that we cannot adhere to a standard set back in 1980. I urge your support of Senate Bill 180.
Any further remarks from the floor? Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong opposition to Senate Bill 180. While I very much respect my colleagues' views, the reality is this, that the current $750,000 policy limit is what we have in 49 other states. The entire federal government system is based on $750,000. There are only 3,600 Nevada trucking companies that are only here in Nevada. That is the only people that are going to be forced to now pay at least $1.5 million policy. Secondly, insurance companies don't sell those policies beyond $1 million. They're going to be forced to buy an additional policy. And all we're doing in this case is we're forcing the Nevada companies to pay an insurance that none of their competitors around in all the surrounding states will be required to pay. You're creating a huge competitive disadvantage, and you're only basically punishing Nevada-based companies. We cannot force all the interstate companies to pay this, and the federal government doesn't require that. So the idea that hasn't been raised in all these years, the federal government actually did an extensive survey about this back in 2022 and determined that the $750,000 rate is perfectly sufficient. So if this was a national bill, then maybe it would be fair. But to force this kind of coverage on Nevada-based companies only is wrong. It's unfair, and it takes away a huge competitive advantage, or gives, a huge competitive advantage to interstate trucking companies. We place our own people at a disadvantage. The other thing, auto insurance in general. As most of us know, our own private auto insurance policies have been going through the roof. I get more complaints about what's going on with auto insurance. Here, we need to address that at some point too, because the reason some of these things are going on is because we've become such a litigious state. Every third billboard is now a lawyer billboard encouraging people to sue other people. And you want to know why your auto insurance is going through the roof? That's why. And now we're singling out one little tiny group, 3,600 family-owned businesses mainly, and we're going to force them to pay double what every other what every other trucking company in the nation has to pay. It makes no sense. So I would urge my colleagues, let's protect Nevada businesses. Let's make sure everybody is on an equal playing field when it comes to insurance and trucking. And let's vote no on this and help our own industries to stay competitive. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further remarks? Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity for the second bite at the apple. Just for the sake of clarity, we have often agreed that the federal government sets the minimum standard and that it is the state that sets the ceiling. We do things that often go further and beyond in protecting our Nevadans all the time that the federal government doesn't do. Because the federal government has a rule. They set the minimum. But we have an obligation to look at our state because we recognize that not every single state has the same population, has the same issues, has the same concerns, and each state will go above that consistently. In addition to that, the idea that we are only impacting Nevada businesses is also escaping one of the very clear things that's written into the bill. If an out-of-state company were to have a contract where they move items from southern Nevada to northern Nevada, even though they're an out-of-state company, they also would have to adhere to this. So it is not just local Nevada-based companies that are impacted by this. It is individuals that are operating solely in the state of Nevada. In addition to that, right now, if you have an AC company or you have a small company where you're moving a truck with a bunch of equipment in the back of it, they carry $1 million policy. How is it that my friend's small business that does AC repairs and the handyman that does quick little patch-up work in the state of Nevada right now carries $1 million, but the big freight carrier carries $750,000. I urge your support for Senate Bill 180.
Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 11, the noes are 10. SB 180 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 189, introduced by Senators Lang, et cetera, provides for the licensure and regulation of genetic counselors. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill. This bill requires a two-thirds majority vote.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 189 provides for the regulation of a practice of genetic counseling by the Board of Medical Examiners and requires the board to appoint a genetic counseling advisory council, as well as adopt certain regulations regarding the professional licensure of genetic counselors. The provisions of this bill: the advisory board is effective upon passage and approval and will expire by limitation on January 1, 2031. Other provisions are effective upon passage and approval for purposes of adopting regulations and performing preparatory administrative tasks, and on January 1, 2026 for all other purposes. Thank you.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 19, the noes are 2. SB 189 has received a two-thirds vote, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. We obviously still have a lot of work to do on our general file, but for now, would move that the Senate stand in recess until the hour of 3:30 p.m. this afternoon.
We are in recess.